So why do people say black don't crack?
I kind of think that's a loaded question, but I'll go for the surface level answer. I feel like this came about, and I'll even think back to, you know, how I've used it is it's another way of saying like, you look good or dag, you haven't aged a bit. I think for us as Black people, we use those slogans interchangeably. So when we say Black don't crack, it's like, you look good. And I think what first comes to mind is like your face. It's really about the face. And I think if you were to add terms, so it'd be like, oh, like you don't have wrinkles, you're not aging like I think we think aging looks like, whether that's wrinkles, saggy skin, what have you. And then we hit it with Black don't crack.
Okay. Okay. Now, when was the first time you heard that term?
I don't even know if I could tell you that. I had to have been young. I feel like I've heard it a lot, maybe. And the reason I say I don't think I could tell you that is because I feel like I've heard it for most of my life.
Okay.
And growing up in Baltimore and being heavily surrounded by Black people, so growing up in Baltimore for part of my life, or part of my childhood, I think it's something we say to each other, especially for someone you haven't seen in a long time. Or I think I remember a lot of hearing it a lot, like when I would go to the store with my mom, and one time people thought me and my mom were sisters, and I was like, no.
Okay. I
And
know that's a big thing. That's a big thing.
Yes. And I think when you get to the point in the conversation, it's like, wow, Black don't crack. That has to be it. When you realize, like, or in my case, when they realized my mother was my mother and not my sister.
I mean, so do you think that when people say that, they're just being kind of like extra nice? Like they say, okay, this person does look older, but not, they still look pretty good. So they'll just say stuff like Black don't crack?
No. This
No?
term in particular, I know. I feel like when I've used this, like, I'm sincerely extending a compliment, or what I would like to think is a compliment, your way. And I don't think it's not one of those what we would probably quote as being shady. Well, let me just say this so I can put something nice out there so I can make conversation. No, I really wholeheartedly feel like when we say it, we mean it. And I know I can't speak for everyone, but I've always felt like it's a genuine thing that we say in our community.
Okay. I see. I think this term, Black don't crack, is something that is, it's a compliment on one level, but on another level, I think that it's just a statement that says, oh, okay, well, you look good for your age, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you look young. I do think that there's like online on social media, you see hashtag Black don't crack and all this stuff when you see these celebrities and whatnot. But it's like, all you gotta do is just look past their face. First of all, half the time their faces are Photoshop, blurred. I don't know if you've seen this like blur filter that's been going on a lot with Instagram and all that. But it's not just about people's faces, it's about their entire bodies, right? It's about their skin on their arms, it's about their hands. It's not just about, that quick 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 second look. But with that said, I think that we do, as we age, we don't necessarily, like, our skin does not necessarily wrinkle when you compare it to other ethnicities per se. It doesn't age in the same way. But I do think that, like, we do age. And what I want to ask you is, with this term Black don't crack, do you think that it's a healthy thing to say? Do you think that term kind of gets could there be any like downside to embracing that term in regard to like how you take care of yourself?
Yeah, before I touch on that, I want to say I do. So I think we have two different perceptions of how this is used. So when I feel like I've heard Black don't crack, I feel for me, it's like it's focused on the facial thing. I wouldn't really add extra body parts in it because I feel like your neck can be sagging and your face could look good. Uh,
Exactly.
so I
Exactly.
yes.
People out here looking like turkeys for Thanksgiving. Right. Now go
So
ahead. I'm
so
sorry.
I think you take other things into consideration that I probably wouldn't.
No, because I mean, I remember and remember your point. Remember your point. It's just I remember one time when I was in the park with some people, and then there was this older gentleman that was there, and he was older, and then and then like nice face, no real wrinkles and everything, but it was clear that he was older, and he had like a polo shirt that was buttoned up all the way to the top. He was just like strolling through the park and everything. But it was clear that his arms were, he was an older man. But because his face was not that wrinkled, the person that I was with, she asked him, says, so how old are you? He said, 60. She said, back don't crack. And he like smiled. I said, there you go. See, that's the problem right there, is that you're only looking from the damn chin up. It's a whole rest of the body you have to evaluate.
But I would go back and say, and I don't know, where did the slogan come from? Where did it stem from? And for me, I feel like it stemmed from a comparison of Black people, how Black people age versus how other people age.
You mean like white people?
Sure, we can use white people as an example.
Or whatever. What other people are you thinking?
Huh, I feel like Asians came to mind too. I was just
Okay. Uh-huh.
who's not Black in one category, but I feel like we have to consider the history a little bit, and I don't know what the history of it is, but I feel like for us to say Black don't crack, why did we start saying that? Like, where did it come from? It's not just, oh, you look good for your age, or you don't, because we had to have some perception of what, like, let's just say 60, what 60 looks like.
Exactly.
For us to make up something that says, well, for 60, you look good, or you don't look as I expect that you would.
Yes, exactly. What's the measure, right, of what Black and don't crack means? It's like I remember there's an interview when Chris Rock was on Wendy Williams, and then and then Wendy asked how old he was, and it was like his birthday or something. He turned like 50 something, and she said, Black don't crack. And Chris Rock said, oh no, I've seen some cracked Black. And I would attest that that's true. I have seen some cracked Black. I mean, do you think that this term also kind of gets internalized to the point in which that Black people feel as though like they don't necessarily need to seek medical attention or get like the assistance of a doctor or anything like that? Like, do you see any kind of like negative consequences to this mantra that this axiom?
I think I don't know. That's a tough question to answer because I think there is a lot that goes into our mentality of how we perceive things. So, but from this slogan alone, I don't know that I could say yes, but I don't know that I could say no either. So I think we've talked about it from like a surface level, like this is, hey, as Black people, we throw out, hey, Black don't crack. That's very superficial. We're talking about what I see And I think when we talk about medicine and things of that nature, there's so much more to it than what the natural eye can see. And do we take all of that into consideration? I don't know that we're the best about that.
Yeah. I think that this term "black don't crack," I think we use it as an excuse to not holistically take care of ourselves. I think that we over rely on this idea of us not aging as a bit of what's the word I want to use? Like imagination, because a lot of us, we don't want to get older. We want to kind of like stay young perpetually. So the fact that our genetics do kind of benefit to the fact that we cannot necessarily look as old as one would think, and it does not absolve like the reality that we are getting older. So, and then also that some of us do have issues, do have skin issues. So what has your experience been with your skin health?
It's been a journey, and
Mhm.
I think it'll probably be a lifelong journey. So for me, I think the worst of my skin years, as maybe most people could probably say, middle school, I was like, I'm hideous. Please put a brown paper bag over my face. That's the kind of life I wanted to live. So
Oh, come on. Seriously?
yes, it was bad.
Mm.
It was bad. But you're also, but other things considered, I was a teenager. I was having identity crisis every other day, the
Mhm.
natural teenager things, or preteen, however old you are in middle school. I just had horrible acne, but you can't single out skin from holistic healthcare because it's so much of like what you're consuming and what you're doing, that factors into how healthy your skin is. Did I know that then? Maybe I was aware. Was it something that I took into consideration in my everyday? I wasn't mature enough to. So for me, growing up, I grew up with a Southern aunt who we had three square meals a day. We were nice and fed and it showed. But she put butter, sugar, and salt in everything.
Mm.
And I've come to learn in my older years that you don't even really have to ask me like what my diet is. You can see on my skin. Because if my skin isn't looking so good, it really means my diet has not been good. Um,
Mm.
it is a direct correlation for me. So I think though we underplay how much holistic healthcare factors into our skin's health. Um,
Mhm.
and then a little later in life, when I was in college, I went to a dermatologist because I was just so sick of the acne. A pretty prominent dermatologist and Black doctor in Baltimore. He prescribed me Bactrim. At, and I don't know that I'm not a doctor. Don't quote anything I say. I don't know that Bactrim was regularly used for acne. So
Back drum?
Bactrim.
Okay.
Um,
What is that like? Do you is it topical or is it oral?
pills.
Pill? Okay. Uh-huh.
So I was taking this medicine and kept taking it. I started to break out into a rash, like these little dots. I had never had chicken pox. So I was like, oh my God, am I getting chicken pox? I didn't know what chicken pox looked like. Um, went to I think I was on campus. I was in college. So I went to the nurse on campus. She didn't know what it was, basically sent me back on my merry little way. I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to be sick, I legitimately remember having this thought, and it was a decade ago. If I'm going to be sick, at least my skin's going to be clear. So I kept taking medicine.
Mm.
And I kept getting worse.
Beauty's pain, huh?
Uh, you know it. Uh, I ended up going to patient first, and they also didn't know what was happening, but they did ask me, hey, are you taking any prescribed medications? I was like, yeah, I am. It's just something for my skin. I can't think of the name. And they they brushed it off with me. So again, didn't know what it was. Came back to my room. I don't remember time frame or anything. Fast forward, I woke up one night with pain in my spine. Mind you, I had continued to take the medicine. I was not missing doses because I wanted my skin to be clear.
Oh my gosh.
But me, I just didn't put two and two together.
Right.
So I woke up one day, I had pain in my spine, something I never felt before because I wasn't sick growing up. I was overweight, but I wasn't sick. So I called my parents and they were like, I went to school in Virginia. My mom's like, oh no, we don't do hospitals in Virginia. I'm bringing you back home to Maryland to go to Johns Hopkins. So come back, go to Johns Hopkins. By this point, I'm pretty darn sick. I get in, the nurses, doing all the regular stuff. And I'm like, I just want to go home, lady. Can I go? She looks at me and says, you are very sick. You're not going home. You're going to be admitted. This is the first time I've ever been admitted to the hospital.
Wow.
By this point, the rash has spread to my entire body. Fast forward, it was a journey. Ended up being an 18-day hospital stay for them to find out that the medicine I was taking for my skin was what caused the reaction. And by the time, throughout these, almost 3 weeks, I had developed infections in my kidneys, in my liver, in my blood, and just a whole host of things. So I just became very sick. So while it was affecting my skin, that was the first physical symptom you could see, it was killing me from the inside. So I'm at Johns Hopkins, top hospital in the world, and it took them almost 3 weeks to figure out what the problem was. It wasn't until they brought a dermatologist in that he suggested, hey, I think this is something that's related to the skin, but the impacts are on the inside. So I had something called DRESS syndrome. I don't know how to say the acronym. I'm not a doctor. But essentially you develop this rash, and if you don't treat it, then it starts to affect your organs. Or in my case, that's what happened. So I have an allergy. I found out I have an allergy to that specific medicine. And I just have to be very mindful of what I'm ingesting. Fast forward more recently, December 2020, again, had another outbreak. Didn't know what the medicine was.
Whoa, that's recent.
That's very recent. I had my wisdom teeth taken out. And that weekend broke out into another rash. And I was like, here we go again. But this time it was a little harder to pinpoint what exactly caused it. And it was just like, but at least this time I was a little more informed. And I knew that what I was feeling then was very similar to what I felt 10 years prior. So I knew at that point, steroids is how I get rid of it and how I treat it. But the healing journey, it took me from the first breakout, it took me, I'd say, I didn't feel like I was completely healed until 2 years later. But that's also because I had a bit of an extended stay in the hospital.
Right.
But the healing process, it takes a while. So all that to say, one, be careful what you put in your body. But two, it's so much more than what you see on the surface. And I just don't know that we in our community do a good job of realizing that just because you can or cannot see it doesn't mean something isn't there, is or is not there.
Right. Okay. So, do you think in hindsight, that there was a different kind of medication you could have taken to address your acne, or do you think you were mistreated? Do you think you were given the correct stuff, but you took too much of it? Do you think that your body just happened to have an adverse reaction that nobody could have predicted? What are your thoughts behind that?
So I did a little bit. I looked up the medication afterwards, and I didn't see in what I was looking at, I didn't see that what I was prescribed was actually used to treat acne.
Mm.
from it was more of a like if you have some sort of I think what I saw the most was ear infections. So I really was confused as to why it was prescribed for my acne.
Hmm.
But again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what his thought process was. Um, I think in hindsight, the holistic approach would have been girl, change your diet.
Mm.
Um, that drink more water.
So you think that that butter, that sugar, that lard was the one that had you looking like a Nestle Crunch, huh?
Wow, you didn't have to say it like that, but I absolutely,
Yeah.
I definitely think so. And then that was my first year in college, so everything went out the window. I was like, oh, we eating whatever, whenever. Nothing was healthy about the food. And
Yeah. Yeah. Acne. Woo. I definitely remember my acne experiences. So and people can have worse outbreaks than others, but it sounds like you must have had a pretty bad case of it.
I feel like I did. I
Hmm.
feel we are often our harshest
Yeah.
critics, excuse me. But you
Well,
know,
look, we can't tell now. Look at you. You look like Terrell Hicks from Belly. Black don't crack.
is that supposed to be a compliment?
You ever seen Belly?
No.
Right, because you don't watch movies. It's a classic hip hop movie. DMX was in it. Rest
Yes,
in
I
peace.
knew that. I knew that much.
That's right. The girl, it's like a whole meme. She's got like this jet black skin, and it's like it glistens in the dark, and it's like a blue light that hits her in the scene. She was also in A Bronx Tale. You should look her up, Terrell Hicks. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point is that look at you, you made
I made it.
it.
It's still a journey.
Yeah, acne's pretty much out of here. But just because the acne's gone, uh, how do you currently take care of your skin, your health? How does that affect you now?
So I think more recently, like really recently, I was like, oh, I had a real coming to myself conversation. Like, I'm getting older, the things I used to do and not take time to put effort into, I can no longer do that. And my skin is probably I got a top on my top 5 list. Like, so I've tried to be more intentional. I still feel like I'm in like an experimental wave of like finding products that really truly work for my skin, provide me with moisture, feel like my skin dries out, can feel like it dries out um, really quickly. But again, that could be my own, like me using a product that's just not good for my skin. So I think so for now, you know, I'm I used to do that. Oh, I'll just wash my face in the morning. I quit that. I'm washing my face first thing in the morning before I go to bed. I ain't going to bed with any makeup on or anything like that if I do wear makeup. So I very intentional about doing these things. When I'm on my A game, I'm drinking a lot of water.
Mm.
Say that I have been lately, but I'm gonna get back. And I do know when I drink water, when I drink enough water, my skin just I don't even need to do that much to my skin when I'm hydrated and when I'm eating well. I'm not saying that's the solution for everyone.
Mhm.
But I know that that works well wonders for me.
Right. So, okay. All right. So where do you what would you like to see? What would you like to see in the world that you haven't seen so far that you think would assist with having better skin health, either for you yourself or just uh, Black people in general? What are your thoughts behind that?
If I can touch a bit on like what I've been through my skin journey. I think looking back 10 years ago, what I had was super rare at the time, which is why it took them so long to figure out what it was. And then even when I went after, like, I had gotten out of the hospital, I would Google, I saw nobody who looked like me that had what I had. And I think so often it's easy to get discouraged when you look up something or you try to find information on something and then nobody looks like you. And it's like, whoa, I don't think we can relate, because there are just differences in people who are more melanated than people who are not. And just to have some sort of platform or um, something that would really help me as a person or us as a Black community be able to utilize to say, hey, here's what I'm going through, or I need some help with trying to find out what I have, but I don't feel like I'm getting the right answers. That would be so meaningful, because I would say sometimes I do think people do put their like an effort into trying to figure things out. Like, you'll go to the doctor, I'm trying to figure this out. And then it's really easy to feel like, hey, I don't think that doctor heard me. And then get discouraged and say, forget it. I've been there, done that. I'm like, I've gone, I tried, I quit, I don't care. And think about it maybe 2 years later. Unfortunately, we don't get time back though. And I think it's why it's easy for us to do that. I think we have to push ourselves, and by us, I mean Black community. We have to push ourselves a bit beyond that and say, hey, this person didn't give me what I need, but I'm gonna go find it because I know it's out there. So I think if we had an app or something that could just be like, hey, here's my resource, it would be such a relief, and then such a big help for us in our community.
Okay, I definitely hear you on that. And so, I created Melologic, and Melologic is an app that gives Black people a single source of skin health information from trusted professionals who look like them. And in addition to that, participating users will be able to uh, um, contribute or donate to the Black Skin Health AI data set, which will give them the opportunity or the ability to submit a photo of any skin issue they may have and receive instantaneous feedback on what it could be and suggestions on how they should treat it. And what are your thoughts behind that?
So in terms of like being a useful resource, I think that would be amazing, because I think the other thing I've seen is there is a very small pool of, in this case, dermatologists, Black dermatologists available. And I think I've tried. I specifically seek Black doctors, especially dermatologists, because I feel like there's just something about our skin that you may or may not have had the experience, and you may or may not be able to advise me correctly. But when I go and find them, their wait list is like 3 to 4 months long. Well, I have a problem now. My problem's not going to be my problem in 4 months, hopefully. So I think something that is more instantaneous, that has, hey, here's my problem now, that can give us real time feedback, like, oh, that would just be such an amazing resource to be able to use.
Yeah, it's like the dermatology practices, because they're so small, those that have the education and experience of treating Black skin on a regular basis. It's not like when you walk in, you look like a zebra, like a unicorn or some other kind of like alien or whatever. When you do find it, it's like waiting to get drafted in the NBA, to get your appointment. So I definitely hear you. I'm glad that you're able to find Melologic useful, the concept. So yeah, appreciate the time. And is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, I'm super excited for Melologic to see where it goes and how much of a beneficial resource it'll be for years to come, you know, so I can make sure that this black don't crack.
Cool, cool. Well, we'll make sure that we'll be able to help you with that. So, all right, Yemisi, thank you for the time. All right.
Thanks for having me, Avery.
Of course, of course. All right.